Stefan, Phillip, thank you very much for inviting me here to MPC, Munschek Process Consulting, talking about factory planning, especially on the clean and dry room end for battery production. But before we dive into the technical details and the open points we have to address in our industry, I would like to understand from you, how did you enter the field of factory planning and also segue into batteries? Stefan, you want to make the start?
Yeah, so we have many years of experience in factory and clean room planning in various industries, so like medical, pharma, food, or anything else. And therefore, clean room is always a key competence in the battery production. And therefore, we see many important key factors in the battery production, like in other industries. So we can adapt some processes from medical to battery production as well. We talk about increased capacity in Germany and Europe for manufacturer and for supplier as well. And the clean room production is such a new world for the most manufacturers. So clean room production is such a new world for the most manufacturer. And therefore, we see it's not only manufacturing, but also logistic and quality assurance we need in the production. Classic solutions are cleaning, repackaging, additional processes, but all of this costs time, money, and efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And what's more, many companies in automotive world are geared towards lean principles. And this is where conflict arises. So at first glance, cleanliness zones and lean concepts.
Yeah, what does it mean, lean, in this case? Can you just give a practical example to...
So classical lean production, one-piece flow, and maximum of efficiency. And in the clean room world, we want to save the particle or the cross-contamination.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, we have to do some additional steps like repackaging or out packaging from material or cleaning.
But what do you
material.
mean with one-piece flow? Just to give everyone an understanding.
We have a production flow and we have a material from the logistic to the production where we don't have to storage the material. We do it directly or bring it directly from logistic to the production. And in the clean room world, we have to keep in mind that we have additional steps like cleaning, repackaging, anything else. Yeah. We plan processes as clean as necessary, but as efficient as possible, because we have to keep in mind that we want to save the material or want to produce the best product with the best quality without contamination of particles.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so with that, I understand the scope and the value that you want to provide to the customer. Can you talk a little bit about your key competences and the way you work, bringing this value to the customer? Yeah. So what are the pillars?
So the pillars are, we are a factory planner, clean room expertise, and do project management as a single source. We plan processes for cleaning as a starting point and not an afterthought. And
so you plan it right from the start. That's what you mean.
Yeah.
Before the factory is even built or
and what we see in battery production, we build factories without the process view. So what we have to keep in mind, what's about air logs, what about material flow, what about personnel flow. When we don't keep this in mind, we have much increase of cost time. We want to solve the problem with our expertise in factory and clean room planning, because we plan the processes with a holistic view. So we have all the guidelines.
Yeah, that's what I also learned during our tour that you gave me, like kicking off the project with a workshop and really scoping the customer's needs and then understanding what is in scope, what is out of scope. And then going through the engineering and simulation phase, right, that you showed me, where you have various different tools that you work with, like AnyLogic and tools around that, and then all the way up to the customer side. So I think it must be emphasized here also that you're not just doing office work in this regard, but you're preparing with the simulation, with the engineering, to then at the site help the customer on getting to production, correct?
Yeah. That's correct. So we want to understand the process. We want to understand how the product goes through the factory and on which state we have some kind of critical points regarding cross-contamination, and what we have to keep in mind when we have a contamination.
Yeah, I think this is the perfect segue over to actual projects that you do, right? So how do you bring this competence now into real life projects? So Philip, maybe you can give us an understanding. Let's take a clean room, dry room example that underlines your factory knowledge and factory planning know-how, but also brings in the clean room competence that you have a specialty in.
Let me maybe give you an example from one of our customers from the cleanroom sector who's decontaminating textiles worn in other cleanrooms, where we had been involved from the very beginning, so from the first scratch.
And it's an interesting example because it has an intersection with the battery production. We'll come to that.
Absolutely. So in that project, we were really able to start from the very beginning, defining machine capacities or requirements for our machines, understand the material flow so that we can design it best possible, understand all requirements for the cleanliness areas, which clean room grades do we need. And therefore, we were able to design an ideal greenfield factory as the first starting point. Later, that needed to be adapted to brownfield. So there had been an existing building. We needed to adapt that ideal factory concept, layout concept to that. But that also enabled us to adapt it for now, I think, 6 other laundries that we created for them European-wide as a starting point.
Wow.
So first starting point is then the material flow analysis, understand the processes, build the blueprint for that factory, and then adapt it for other laundries European-wide.
Okay. So that is an example not directly associated with the battery production, but I would like to come closer to that now. I mean, we also, as you mentioned, Stefan, have a lot of clean room competences to take care of in battery production, maybe from electrode all the way up to assembly, until the cell is closed, because then contamination is not that big of an issue anymore. So what other examples from your work can you give that pay into this maturing of the battery production industry in Europe?
One example is maybe the textiles worn in a clean room. Everywhere also in battery factories knows that there are specific textiles that you need to wear in a clean room.
So we're coming from the laundry now,
Correct.
Taking the laundry into the battery factory, right?
Exactly. And it's good that that's at least known everywhere, but the problem is the clothing concept should start when you enter really the building. You need to see it holistically, because the overall process can be very inefficient if you're not factoring in things like the canteen or the bathrooms. So always when you leave the clean room, you have to take off those clothes. And if you to do that, always when you have to go to the bathroom or to a canteen, that simply takes time. So a thought through clothing concept is also key for having later on an efficient personal flow in your production area.
So where can bottlenecks arise in the production? I mean, you may think now, and I have been to companies like Stiva, for example. They make the battery lids for battery cells, in this case prismatic. And there where they had the changing concept that they had sealed clothing, so they were kind of replaced every time. So you have a closed bag, and then, but it takes time. And when you're in the gate, so I understand that there may arise bottlenecks, right, in the production flow. When you mentioned like people are going to the canteen, 10 people are coming in, but there's only room for 5. So this is what you're talking about when we're talking about process flow, right? On a personal level?
One of the biggest problems is if not all important requirements have been factored in for designing a personal airlock. Simply, it's too small. You don't have the space for buffering enough garments, for buffering when you only have to leave the clean room for a short period and reuse them again. And the layout is simply not allowing for enough space for enough people to enter the clean room. That's why we sometimes in projects even do a simulation for that, to understand what time will we need for bringing all of our employees to the clean room.
Yeah, let's put this one a little bit deeper, or dive a little bit deeper into this. What does simulation for you mean in this regard? Are you setting up a spreadsheet and crunching some numbers? Do you work on a 3D virtual twin model basis? So what are the tools that you find necessary for European or just general battery manufacturing that need to be applied and really have a thorough understanding that the production flow is guaranteed from every aspect, may it be personal or what we will come to in a second, material flow.
Maybe one can separate there two kind of analyzes. Static simulation, which can simply be an Excel sheet for easy problems, which will give you an answer probably at 80% accurate and will solve 80% of your problems. But if you really want to understand more complex processes or personal flows, really simulation factoring in a lot of different factors then can help you understand 90, 95 or even more percent of your process. And that makes sure that once you want to start up your factory, there's simply a smoother production possible. You simply understand your processes better at an early stage.
Yeah, and the important thing is in the dynamic simulation, we describe the whole processes. So from the beginning to the end of the clean room, for example. And we think it's very important because the different steps in the process or in the production is very complex, and we transfer the complexity into clarity, and this is what we do to describe where we have bottlenecks, in which stage we have to keep in mind that we have a high risk of contamination, or in which stage it's not so important because the contamination doesn't matter, or we have processes that is in every step there.
Okay, so you kind of pre-plan and you show off the cost that may arise if you don't act in an early stage. So that's
for example, the personal flow, when we have some kind of persons, they wait every shift 20 minutes to entry into the clean room. That's cost we want to solve the problem, and therefore we have to keep in mind how big is the airlock for this. And in our experience with a manufacturer, for example, they plan a factory and the airlock is too small. So we can or we cannot change the size of the airlock because it exists already, and therefore we have to keep with our customer what we can do to solve the problem. But what we want to mention, in the early stage, we have to describe the processes, and we want to know how many people entry into the clean room to save money and time for the future
in OpEx
process.
later on, so that you
on
don't
the shop
have
floor,
to build up any workarounds that then deviate the originally planned process flow, because you need some buffer areas that you hadn't originally planned, limiting the overall production output potentially. So I think it's clear that we need to do more homework in terms of battery production in Europe. Not because we're lazy, but just because we're starting off. Like, the industry just has to mature. The Morrow case that's coming up right now is also an example for this, that yes, there's still way to go until we really have a matured, stable industry. That said, I would like to put up one metric, that our capex costs, for example, are also double as high still as the building a factory in Asia, for example, building it in Europe. So that said, we need to know, or we must be aware of, that we need to be very efficient in what we do, and that we need to be on spot in terms of quality, because scrap is the determining factor here. So clean dry rooms, this is fundamental that we get this in. So I would like now to come to the point of material flow planning, because this is, in the end, besides personal flow planning, we touched on this, a driving factor for the product or the process line efficiency, and keeping the OEE high, etc. So from the observations you have done in the field, the projects you worked on, what are the key pillars that we need to look at in terms of material flow in order to get to stellar production efficiency in Europe?
I think key is here bringing an efficient product flow, but also cleanliness requirements together. As Stefan mentioned, auto manufacturers are good in designing efficient productions. That's what they do for decades. But the problem is often that we see cleanliness as an isolated problem. And that simply leads to conflicts between those two pillars. That then occur once you start your factory, because you learn that you have contaminations where you shouldn't have those. So how to address that is then understand your process from the very beginning, always with a risk-based analysis, or risk-based approach, that you understand where can contaminations occur and where do I need to address them. So design your material flow in an efficient way, but also in a clean way, so that those problems don't occur.
Can you give an example? Like,
Um,
where do some breaks in the process flow happen where you say like, yeah, it may deviate or is a risk for quality, but also for process flow?
Always or most of the cases, the problem is the packaging concept. So you receive products from your suppliers, but they are not adequately packed. So you have to clean the product or the packaging layers before you can bring it to the clean room.
What would the packaging look like? Like a good one and a not good one from your perspective?
A good one is always a cleanable one that you could clean if needed, or more important, that is already clean. So you always look at different packaging layers that you remove step by step, so that you are ensuring product is as clean as possible.
So let's take the battery cans, for example, as an example. When they get shipped over, how are they packaged? What would be a good case? What would be a bad case? Just very simple terms.
So what we see, we have specification from manufacturer to the supplier with some kind of cleanliness requirements, and the supplier do the best to match the specification. But what we see, the packaging concept doesn't match to the process by the manufacturer, because the manufacturer doesn't have some kind of cleaning zones, or the cleaning zones we need doesn't exist. Because when we have a packaging concept, we have to know, I have to remove some kind of packaging in a dedicated zone. And when I don't have the dedicated zones, I have to clean, because we have a high risk of cross-contamination when I bring a wood pellet into to a clean room, for example. That's a big mistake what I can do. No one do this, we know this, but we have some kind of cross-contamination instead of wood particles when I don't have zones before the clean room, or before I enter to the clean room. And this is what we see, and we said the best clean room by the supplier doesn't make sense when I don't describe the packaging concept. Because when I produce as a supplier in a ISO 7 clean room, for example, and I said, okay, I confirm with the specification, and on the transport, the packaging is very bad and we have contamination, then the whole supply chain is totally shit, because we have a contaminated product and I have to clean it in the battery manufacturing area, and this is very inefficient.
It requires additional space, also water supply, etc. So again, costs and logistics at the site. So key question, are you advising on those packaging concepts in your processing process support that you deliver and the engineering that you do?
What we always try to do is understand what's really needed, and then give you at least an idea about what should be done. So, but the key there is to see it as a holistic process. So what will be delivered from your supplier, and which needed steps would you have to do for giving them instructions for delivering you better packages, or if that's not possible, how do you address that topic then in your own factory? So how do you clean your products, and how do you remove those packaging layers?
Okay, I understand you. I'm doing this expedition, traveling all across Europe to first and understand what are the different needs, but also competences, and where can we reach hands, right? And we, and Stefan especially, we talked a lot to get a mutual understanding, like where we are at in the industry, where we see big no-goes that really should be communicated towards others so that we can mature faster. From your perspective, for the European battery ecosystem, what is holding us back on really teaming up as one team and reaching hands quicker and more efficiently and effectively? If you can, from your daily work, give us a little insight on what would you advise, like, this is not really working well, they're not listening, the OEM is a little bit too resistant, or is actually very welcoming and accepts our suggestions. So can you just give a reflection on that.
Maybe a reflection from our customers is that there is a lot of fear ongoing that it's not really, let's say, happening. So they are all nominated for then maybe 1 or 2 years, but no one really knows what's happening after that. And there's some general perspective that or no optimistic perspective, I would say, and everyone is kind of holding back because no one knows what will happen in 2 years.
Okay.
So I think that's a problem, at least for our customers.
Yeah. So the planning time in the next years are very critical, and because of that, many suppliers think about how they can enter into the market and should they enter into the market because of the planning situation, because no one knows how the outcome is in 4 or 5 years or anything else, and that's a big point. And for the process by the manufacturer, I think it's a big point to keep in mind that the clean room is not an isolated system. So we have to keep in mind that the clean room and the production steps and logistic is a holistic processes, and all of these departments has a different step they do, and we have some kind of a narrow perspective in the process, and we see that's a big point. And as I said before, or as I said at the beginning, the clean room is some kind of a paradigm shift for the automotive sector, and
well said, yeah.
And I think that's a big point, because we have very good engineers and we have very good logistica, but the clean room part is it's some kind of a new world and new processes.
Yeah, that's what I also understand from our conversations and the insight that you gave me. It's an underestimated part in the production chain, because it's not directly in the production, but it's surrounding it. So everyone is kind of, we also have to care of that, but let's look at the production equipment first.
But what I want to mention, when we talk about medical and pharma, we don't have to describe what is contamination, because they know contamination and they have fixed guidelines for this. And in battery production, we have no fixed guideline. We need ISO 7 or ISO 8, or we don't need a clean room. We have only need technical cleanliness. And I think that's a big point, that we don't describe it in deep dive, like in medical and pharma. It's some kind, it's a standard process.
Yes. It's interesting, because having seen many factories now from the inside, you see very different concepts and ways people deal with this. So I would like to not end on a negative note, but also, because you said we have capable engineers, etc. What is your perspective? What is your call to action if you would give advice to stakeholders out there? It can be on the technological end, but also towards decision makers. What would you give?
Maybe all of the OEMs have incredible strength for years, and they are good at operating big factories. That's not new to them. But look for the people who are experts in the other fields. Look out for the support that can help you understanding what's really needed for your factories at an early stage, and not when it's too late, but when you start with designing a factory. Learn from those experts, bring it to your factory, and then start it up when you really think you're prepared best possible.
Okay.
Yeah, and we do factory and clean room planning every day with our customer, and we know the problems in the factory, and we can support the manufacturer and the supplier to produce the best products for this without contamination. And this is what we do, and we do the URS, the specification, and we support the supplier up to the ramp up or to the implementation of machines, products, and anything else. So we are not only a theoretical planner, we are working on the shop floor, we go into the factories, and we know exactly what to do when we talk about scale up, talk about greenfield or brownfield planning, and what we have to keep in mind when we talk about cleanliness requirements.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to see you on the shop floor to bring this industry forward and build the European battery ecosystem. So Phillip, Stefan, thank you very much for providing me the insights, learning me a lot, teaching me a lot, and yeah, looking forward. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.